Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday. And today we're going to talk about Mercury's opposition to Uranus, which is now coming back around through Mercury's retrograde. It was a pretty wild weekend of astrology, in case you missed it. And some people definitely feel it more than others. For example, if you have planets in that 9 to 11 degree range of fixed signs, you probably felt it through Mercury and Uranus. But also, if you have planets anywhere from, say, 20 to 25 degrees of, you even go down to 19 to 25 degrees of cardinal signs, you definitely would have felt it because we had, of course, we have Mars retrograde, the sun moving through Libra, and the T-square between those two planets to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn, all of which were very dynamic. We also had a Venus opposition to Neptune over the weekend. So the sun is finally out of the enclosure with the malefics, which is a relief. You can see here the sun is crossed over the 26-degree marker. Before, when it was in that zone, it was in a zone of uncertainty, a zone of bad news, a zone of difficulties or obstacles, a zone of having to persevere or deal with deadlines or pressure. A lot of different ways of looking at it, which we unpacked last week. But thankfully, the sun is almost out of Libra and is going to move into Scorpio, where it picks up dignity. Mars is going to soon pick up dignity by turning direct again. I mean, it's a little ways out yet, but we're heading in the right direction there. Venus is through the opposition with Neptune and will start gradually moving towards Libra, where it picks up dignity. Surprise, surprise. Mercury today is opposing Uranus, but will back off from the opposition to Uranus, and that should tone down the intensity of that dynamic a little bit. So there's a lot of things that you're getting spelled a little bit from some of the intensity of the past week, at least. But there is still the Mercury-Uranus opposition today. You should probably feel it today and tomorrow. So I just wanted to go back into that, make you aware of it, and give you a sense of what to watch for. This week, I'll also be talking about Mercury and Scorpio in depth, kind of continuing with my Mercury series. Eventually, we'll be doing Mercury in Libra, which I missed. But since Mercury is retrograding back into Libra, I figure we'll cover that when Mercury dips back into Libra. And then a couple of other things that are exciting this week that are coming up. I will be talking about, I'll be doing the next part of my series on 10 things I've learned in 10 years of professional astrology. And also having a guest, one of my Bhakti teachers will be coming on to talk about Bhakti with Kat. So it'll be Kat and myself and one of my Bhakti teachers doing basically an introduction to Bhakti video. What is Bhakti? But you'll get to hear it from someone who I consider a real sage. Her name is Vidarbha. So she'll be here, and you guys get to hear from her. And that's another one of my crossover videos. I get a lot of questions from people about the spiritual component of the astrology that I present on my channel. And so I'm trying to make the bridge to the Bhakti and yoga content that I create more accessible. So we're doing that talk later in the week as well. So some really fun things to look forward to. And then we'll track the transits as usual. All right, all that being said, let's take a look at today's opposition between Mercury and Uranus. Mercury is at about 9 degrees and change, 29 minutes, and is opposite Uranus at about 9 degrees and 10 minutes. So how does this evolve? Well, let's push it forward a few hours and we'll show you. So it's going to take Mercury right until about this evening, basically, until Mercury makes the exact opposition. So it'd be late tonight. Mercury will then, you'll see if we go into tomorrow, Mercury will continue within less than a degree, and we can track that out all the way until essentially like tomorrow night, even into early Wednesday morning, that you still have Mercury about within 1 degree of the opposition. So if you want to say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week as an expression of not only Mercury's retrograde, but Mercury's opposition to Uranus, that would be accurate. You'd be feeling it at least until then. You could stretch it out until Friday, really, because Mercury needs to pull away from about within about 3 degrees before those effects are really starting to fade out of the picture. And remember, eventually Mercury will turn direct, go back through Scorpio and hit that opposition one more time. So we are going to see follow-up surrounding the things that are coming up right now. At least some of them, not all of them. So Mercury opposite Uranus. Now, remember that you have the god of communication and the mind, information, messages and messengers, craft and trade, even court sports where you're going back and forth, like basketball or hockey or something like that. Mercury. Busy marketplaces where people are trading money and goods and services back and forth. Mercury. Highways where things are bustling, coming and going. A busy airport with everyone coming and going. Mercury. The information superhighway, the internet. Mercury. But Mercury is also associated with inventions and inventors. Some people have, I think, accurately recognized that Uranus is a planet that shares a lot in common with Mercury. Uranus is also associated with inventiveness, discovery. It is kind of a paradigm-breaking planet. When you talk about the history of Uranus in terms of ideas and prominent thinkers who have had, major Uranus placements, and this is something that was explored, by the way, if you want to look into that more, in Richard Tarnas's book Cosmos and Psyche, which is a really fantastic book that kind of captures the outer planetary cycles in history, especially the history of culture and thought and so forth. Anyway, Uranus can be paradigm breaking intellectually, but also in terms of technology. And I see a lot of people that have Uranus transits. When they have strong Uranus transits, they take my classes or they get into astrology in some way. So anything that is that may show an interest in the breaking of barriers or commonly held ideas or beliefs often is Uranian. Also, both Uranus and Mercury can be associated with trickery, deception, and thievery. Uranus is kind of a cosmic trickster. Uranus is also the sudden, revealing, shocking, and unexpected. And Uranus, in that sense, is a bit can be like the tarot, the Tower card in tarot. Sudden disasters, sudden violent injuries or accidents, sometimes Uranian. A fender bender that you weren't expecting can be Uranian. But Uranus is also a planet that tends to break us free of blockages or impediments, removes obstacles and limitations, and oftentimes grants us greater freedom and flexibility. So those two planets are now coming together in an opposition, which often means that there's a dynamism and a tension that's coming between these two planets. Of course, Mercury is retrograde, which implies the potential for cross-examination, something I talked about last week, which means we may be revisiting old ideas, or we may be reconsidering something from a different perspective, or one area of our lives may be experiencing a sudden or dramatic reversal or change. And so these changes can be liberating. They can also be shocking, and they can change the status quo in our life through destruction or destructiveness, or kind of a certain divine level of chaos. So here are some things to watch for. First of all, a big theme is rebelliousness, verbal, mental, intellectual, whatever the case might be. There's just maybe a theme of rebelliousness in the air. Is it healthy or unhealthy? Does it damage your reputations, or does it damage, what do I want to say, allegiances? Or is it something that frees us from unhealthy people or unhealthy patterns? That's a good question to ask, especially before reacting or doing something that's very rebellious. Defiance, of course. Defiance, I'm going to do some etymologies today, because another thing that's really Mercury opposite Uranus is to uncover what's behind or underneath something. And so etymology is a great way to discover more, or to mine more deeply into what's happening in your life, or what's happening in your own mind. Oftentimes the words that we use or the words that we think we are choosing are actually choosing us on some level. You've probably heard of a Freudian slip before. And it is annoying when people make honest mistakes of speech and then someone's always like, oh, see, like, yeah, you really are saying this or whatever. And you're just kind of like, okay, it's like just a mistake. But oftentimes there is something more that's being said by virtue of the words that we choose. The words are choosing us. And so to uncover what's underneath something in communication or in dialogue right now is a possibility. So we're going to take a little look at etymologies today. For example, defiance has the idea of as much being provoked by something as to provoke. Isn't that interesting? That when you defy something, there is a sense in which the person who is acting defiantly has been provoked and is provoking. And it can happen simultaneously like that. So, and it happens suddenly with Uranus. The revealing of one's mind, for example, if you suddenly decide to share something that you've been holding in, or if you suddenly say something that needs to be said, these would be perfectly in line. This kind of thing would be perfectly in line with Mercury's opposition to Uranus. You can also get sudden liberating news or information. Oh, thank God. That feels really good. I'm glad to get that news, that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Or, wow, okay, I was thinking it was going to be bad. It's really good. For example, it could be a very simple thing, like you're checking your bank statement and you believe that you have a lot less available in your bank account than you actually do because you made a mistake while accounting, and suddenly all the stress you've been feeling, poof, gone. Oh, wow, a sudden slip up or a sudden mistake turns out to be not as bad as you think it was. It doesn't have the consequence that you thought it would. You say something and you think, oh my God, that was the worst thing ever. And the person on the other end laughs and they say, oh, no big deal. So those are, potentially, again, the liberating side of Uranus can come through and offer levity or sort of lighten the situation. Although sometimes there is almost like a near miss quality in the air, like it could have been really bad, but it's not. And part of why it could have been bad, but it's not right now is also because Mercury's host, Mars, is retrograde and square to Jupiter. There's a weird way in which that picture is the picture of something that could be bad, not being as bad as it is. And that's partly because Mars picks up the square to the fallen Jupiter, and Mars is kind of weakened underneath the surface, or it's picking up some help from a benevolent Jupiter that's overcoming it from Capricorn and exalts Mars. Jupiter's in Mars's exaltation in Capricorn. So you get this picture of a Jupiter that might lift Mars up in some ways. And that's the dynamic underneath Mercury in Scorpio, because Mercury is in Mars's temple. So the information or news that comes to the surface that suddenly relieves you, that's like, oh, okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was. Or it could have been a lot worse than it that ended up. So sudden liberating news or information, you have to be careful of thievery, trickery, deception, manipulation, gossip. And then there's some words that came to my mind and I wanted to dig beneath them a little bit today. Exposure, disclosure, revelation, and epiphany. These are all words, keywords that can be related to Mercury opposite Uranus. And by the way, any of these things could also apply to issues with technology, or media or something like that. And you can see these in the collective or in your lives, personally. Exposure. Most people don't know that exposure, we think about something being seen or revealed. Exposure has an etymological relationship to the light of the sun. And so when something is being exposed, it is as though it is coming from out of a concealed place and being shown in the light of the sun. So you think about this. This is relevant because you have Mercury in that dark autumnal Mars-like sign, and something controversial is being shown or revealed to the sun. It's being brought up so that everyone can see. But is it real? Is it true? Is it a rumor? Is it idle talk or gossip? Those those questions are also important right now because Mercury opposite Uranus can be involved with deception and trickery, in a manipulation of information. So thinking of my, I was just thinking about my younger daughter, right? And how she's only 2, well, going on 2.5 now, I guess. God, time flies. So she'll have a way of, like presenting. She'll come into the room and present to us as though her little sister has just done something awful, and crying and Gigi hit me, or something like that. We're always like, we always buy it too. We're always like, Gigi, why would you do that? And she's like, I didn't do anything. She was like, I'm just not giving her the toy she wants to play with because I was playing with it first. And then we're like, oh, sneaky. So she'll come out and try to sell us on the fact that her sister, who we know to be a little tyrant, at times, and we know that that's the pattern. So she can sell us on it easily. So you also have to be careful right now, because that little example is like, it's like a microcosm of what can happen in our lives right now, where something can present and it can look very convincing or compelling, and you jump to a conclusion immediately, only to realize that you've been maybe tricked on some level, or duped or brought along. So exposing to light, disclosure, or exposing to the light in relation to the sun. But even though you're bringing it up to sea, are you presenting something or revealing something to lead people along? It's hard to say, right? So this is a moment, right, where we still have Venus just separating from the opposition to Neptune. So there's, and remember, Pluto and Jupiter are also in a pretty close sextile with Neptune right now. So, for example, all of the crazy amount of conspiracy theories that have been going around for, I don't know, it seems like a while now, right? That's in part because we have very close relationship between a fallen Jupiter in sextile with Neptune. Even fallen Jupiter on its own can produce paranoid, belief systems or something like that. But at any rate, okay. So, and let's see. Okay, so the next one would be disclosure. Disclosure is a Mercury-Uranus word that means to break open or unlock. Well, to break open can be violent, right? To literally break in, or to, you think of breaking and entering, or thievery that involves some kind of intrusiveness or invasiveness, or invasive procedures or invasive experiences that are sudden. That would be part of what disclosure is. That's a part of what this word is pointing to, and what Mercury and Uranus can point to. Also, to unlock. Disclosure can also mean to there's a sense in which disclosure can mean to unlock something that's been in a vault where nobody can look at it. No, I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to disclose it. Or it can mean to, again, show something that has been locked up, secret, or hidden, and that can be within ourselves, an emotion that we haven't shown, or a fact, or something like that. You can find out through revelation what's happening. Another really good Mercury opposite Uranus word: uncover, unveil, to lay bare. But it also has the connotation of supernatural agency being involved, as in the also the word epiphany, which is a striking appearance, or the manifestation or appearance of a god that suddenly comes into view and speaks. So omens or oracles or signs that speak can definitely be a part of this right now. Mercury opposite Uranus is very much the messenger of the gods motif. So something that is a striking appearance or manifestation that bears a message, and it could be a message of wake up. For example, sometimes when you have close calls, or there's a disaster that's averted, you feel like it was a godsend. Thank you for that, because it keeps me aware, or it keeps me grateful, or it reminds me to stay humble, or it puts me in my place somehow. And we can be really thankful for things like that come up right now as well. You have to be careful again of gossip. What does gossip mean? Well, one of the etymological connotations of gossip is standing around idly talking with your neighbors about other things happening in your neighborhood. So in some ways, it's just everyday chit chat about the comings and goings around in your sphere of activity. But talking idly about others, there's also this way in which um, it can have ramifications. We can entangle ourselves in the karma of other people in really complicated ways, in subtle ways that don't always show themselves right away, by taking part in idle chit chat or gossip or rumors, or I like this person, I don't like that person, etc. And we have to be really careful of that, because especially during a Mercury Uranus opposition, I guess it's possible that such things could have very immediate consequences. That's what comes to my mind anyway. Rumor, by the way, a rumor, which is also possibility right now, some kind of very sudden rumor. A rumor actually etymological means commotion, noise, clamor, popular opinions, and uproar. And all of those things, you could see that the clamoring, idle chit chat becoming suddenly very provocative or explosive. Now, there's also two words that come to my mind. And this is, again, based on the fact that Mercury is not only opposite Uranus, but that Mercury's ruler, Mars, is retrograde and square to a fallen Jupiter, with Jupiter exalting Mars and overcoming Mars. All of that's pretty technical. But you ask the question, is there anything to this? Is there anything to this news or information? Is there anything behind this? So one of the things that you would do in the ancient world is, if you had an omen or an oracle, the manifestation of God, or of an appearance of a god or something like this, you might go to a temple and ask the diviners to verify if this indeed was the manifestation of a god. And if so, what was the god saying? Maybe here's what I think it's saying, but is that really what this god is saying? And along those lines, we're also asking if something is benign or malignant. Benign means well-born, gentle, kind, generous, and malignant would have more of the connotation of to injure maliciously. So we also have to look at whether we've done something, whether something that was benign can suddenly be taken in a way that's very injurious by others, or something that is very malignant can be passed off as very benign. And the reason that this can get crossed up like this, and may have to get sorted out again later, or may have to be clarified later, is because of Mercury retrograde, and because of it being in a mute water sign that tends to be more secretive. There's this revealing, sudden nature to it. So that's why you can see something that was supposed to be benign becoming malignant, or something that was malignant becoming benign. For example, I've seen in my practice in the past week at least two cases of people who were getting medical tests done, and they were really worried that something that indeed turned out to be benign would be malignant. They get the test back and they go, "Oh, thank God, it's not a big deal." And they were really afraid that it would be. So that's another example of such a thing. But it can also be the kind of thing where you're like, "Oh, look, I got a small bump on my toe," right? And you're thinking it's no big deal. And the next morning you wake up and your toe's really swollen, and you go like, "Oh my God, I guess I broke my toe," or something like that. So there can be this weird twist and turn of status where something looks like it's benign but is malignant, or appears like it's malignant but is actually benign. And there can be some combination of both as well right now that is tricky. So watch for, because deception often involves the appearance of something benign and yet the presence of something malignant simultaneously. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, that's what I've got for today. I hope that you guys, I hope that this is useful for all of you as you're navigating your week. Don't forget that my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, starts on November 14th. Still have room. I'd love to have you guys in class. Did a video on it last week if you want to learn more. Did a whole Q&A called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic Q&A if you look in my archives. It's 30 classes on the year, plus 12 guest lectures, plus breakout sessions, optional study with optional homework reading, and quizzes, and tons of bonus material, and a classroom forum. You can be talking to me all year long, asking questions. You guys, some of you met my TA, Delia. We've worked really hard to make this better and better each year. And it's a great program. People often go on to take my second year program and my horary program. So you've got 3 full years worth of apprenticing that you can do if you enjoy the way that I work with astrology. This is Hellenistic astrology, so it's ancient, sort of old school Greek astrology. Shares a lot in common with Indian yogic astrology and philosophy. So check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. We have an early bird rate. You can save $500 when you sign up, pay up front. You can have there's a payment plan, and then there's also need-based tuition if you are in need for any of the reasons that we list on our website. You can check it out there. But also, we're serving people who are struggling due to COVID-19. So check all of that out. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, info@nightlightastrology.com. I look forward to a bunch of cool content the rest of this week. So stay tuned. All right, take it easy, everyone.